Location, going back, as I just heard, with some of the architecture back to the 1930s. I've done as much research as I can with groups like Logan Square Preservation, some of the locals who've been here quite a bit longer than many of us, and talked about how this place worked for the neighborhood and what the impacts are for the changes that are to come on this location. So tonight we're going to do a presentation. I'm just going to go through a couple of quick points. The developer is here today. They're going to discuss their ideas for the project. I'm going to have Logan Square Preservation, Logan Square Neighborhood Association, and one other group talk about the plans that they think should be incorporated into this site. And from there, we're going to open it up to questions and answers. Okay, so don't worry about it. We'll stay as long as we can to answer all the questions. If you go home and you're thinking through stuff and you have other questions, you can always email them. It's only the first meeting, so we've got time to work through the questions, work through the ideas and suggestions. And actually, we've been getting a lot of emails over the last few weeks, and we've seen a lot of good ideas, a lot of good suggestions, and I want to keep that flow going. So what you see up here tonight is just the first presentation. It's not by any means the final product. So I only printed out a few dozen of my zoning guidelines. Obviously, I should have printed out quite a few more. But they're available on my website, ward32.org. The plans for this are also available on the website. So you can look at the zoning guidelines to see how we go through the zoning process. It's worked very well for all the neighborhood organizations over the last 8 years. We make sure that plans that are available to us are available to the public. And those aren't by any means the final plans. They're just the first, look at what people are suggesting. So, a couple of other things. This is again for feedback. I know that there's critical mass here for having the right kind of product, the right kind of end product. And a grocery store has always been one of those issues that I think people have been pushing for many, many years. So that's at the top of our list, something that we're really looking for as a good outcome for this site. There are people who've emailed on all different sides of what they want to see for this location. So we're going to take all that input. We will basically try to go through all of that over the next few days and weeks. What we typically do on our major projects like this in my office is we try to outline all those things, and then we'll disseminate it back to the neighborhood organizations and people who are signed up or who want more information. We take that back. We sit down with the developer. We say, here's the input that we got from the neighborhood, from the residents, and the businesses, and we want you to go back and then reincorporate those ideas into the plan and try to refine your product or recreate your product in a way that fits into the neighborhood. Building height and residential density is obviously a huge issue here, and we go through those on every product or every project that we do. So I know that's a big issue for a lot of you. Transit-oriented development, we are very close to the blue line here, very, very close. And there's some ideas out there for making it mesh with some of the transit options that we have. And they'll go through those as well, and then people have given me some better ideas on that we'll incorporate. Finally, we will come back around and develop an action plan around the feedback that we get from you. If you want to send out emails as you're doing this, as you're thinking through this, our email is info@ward32.org, and you can always pop in the office, drop off your information or ideas. I encourage you to sign in. There's three different sign-up sheets out there. There's one for my office, so if you'd like to get information on it, we'll disseminate that. And then I think Logan Square Neighbors and Logan Square Preservation have also put out sign-up sheets so that they can present their ideas, and probably it's a perfect place for them to get membership as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the development team. They're going to talk about the process that they've gone through so far, introduce themselves and what they see. Again, I'm going to come back around when they're finished, and we'll do Q&A. When we do Q&A, please, we're going to get a ton of hands, I know. I'd like you to please stand up, say your name and the block or the area that you're from, and we'll get through all those questions. All right? So let's kick it off, and we'll let the development team start this off. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Alderman. My name is Scott Gendell, and I am the president of Terrico, Inc. My partner Kevin Gaisley is here. Terrico is a firm that I founded in December of 1985 with my wife Lisa. We've developed in excess of 100 different developments, mostly in the Chicago metropolitan area. We've developed in all areas of the city except one. The one area of the city, when I say areas of the city, I say the south side, the west side, the northwest side. We've never done anything downtown. And we're an infill neighborhood developer. That's what we've always done. These are the opportunities that we like. We like neighborhoods. We're joined tonight by our principal architect, Joseph Antunovich, CEO, general partner of Antunovich Associates. His architect, Patrick Cusack. Patrick, raise your hand. Louis Abuna, our traffic expert from KLOA, and Carol Stubblefield from Lane and Neal. At this point, what I want to do is turn it over to Joe. But before I do that, I want to know that this has been a process for us. Not only have we been meeting in the Alderman's office, but we've met independently with neighborhood groups, with preservation, with Logan Square Association. It's been a process, and that process didn't start tonight, and it won't end tonight. So what we're looking for is what the highest and best use of this property is for ourselves as developers and for the residents of Logan Square. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe and Tim.
Thank you, Scott. And I just want to echo what both Scott and Alderman Waguespack has said. This is no way a done deal. This is no way the final design. We're here to get input. We're here to be good listeners. And I think I've worked in Chicago since 1974. I'm actually a lot younger than I look. But I've been here and worked in all of the Chicago areas. There are offices downtown. We have an office of almost 70 architects here. I've done work at DePaul University and Lincoln Park, work on the south side, all over the city and all over the suburban areas. And so one thing you can check both of our resumes and ask people, we are good listeners, and any comments you may have, we can promise you will not be ignored. We will consider those, and this is really a beginning point for this fabulous site. So, without further ado, the site that we are considering here is a 2.7 acre site outlined with this line here, Milwaukee, Sacramento, the L tracks here. Can you all hear me okay? Yes. And then, of course, the site of the Megamall. One thing you'll hear constantly as we go through this is that this site is almost 3 blocks long. It's over 900 feet long. A typical city block is 330 feet. So this site between Sacramento and almost to Logan Square, we don't own the corner here, the corner that's being considered right now for a park or an apple orchard. We don't own that corner piece, but we come right up against it. So this is the site. This is like bringing coals to Newcastle here, but obviously when we came to the site, the images of the site, the venerable old Megamall that many of you grew up with here in this community. And I'm going to just go through a number of images and talk about the development, really like a snapshot. So I'll start by showing a few images that we have for the proposed building. There's enough architects here that want to redesign the building, but as I said, we're open to your suggestions. So this would be a view coming down Milwaukee from the north, looking to the south. Here in the front, you see where the park will be. An apple orchard has been suggested here. The street trees that will go along Milwaukee. We're proposing retail on the ground floor, very wide sidewalks as wide as 20 feet along Milwaukee Avenue, so that we have generous sidewalks that you can have outdoor dining, you can sit and stay a while. We've got a little movie at the end and you'll see how that works. And then above that, we have buildings of different heights and different sizes. Here at the corner, we have a first floor, and then we have 6 levels above. We have some other parts of the building where we have retail on the first floor and 4 levels above. And then some areas where we might have 6 levels above, so that the heights of the buildings, we've developed the building as a single building, but they are expressed as different buildings along this enormous block, just like they were many years ago. Many years ago, there were buildings here that had retail on the ground floor, and there was living above the store. And that's really what we are intending to do here. We have on the ground floor approximately 115,000 square feet of retail. And the retail at the far end will also extend up to the upper limit here. We have, and I'll get to that in a moment. So along the ground floor, this will all be retail. And then above will be residential in different expressions of architecture, so that it almost looks as if there's 4 separate buildings along this long block. At the center of the block, we will have a traffic light, and this is a view then looking from the south to the north. At the functions change in the building, and here we have a 5-story building at Sacramento and Milwaukee, retail on the ground floor. We're talking to a number of grocery vendors right now. We're very hopeful of getting a large grocery on the corner. We're hopeful to get something as large as 40 to 45,000 square feet on the corner of Sacramento and Milwaukee. And then the other retail then would extend along the base, but also at the corner will be, on the upper 2 floors, a health club. 20,000 feet on each floor, 40,000 square feet in all. And then you might ask, well, how are you going to park this thing? Well, the parking is camouflaged and hidden on 2 levels above the retail, going back about 2/3 of the way along the project. So in here, this is all parking, but it doesn't look like parking. It's all camouflaged, and it looks, if this part, it looks like part of the building. This part looks part of the building. You won't be able to tell the difference. So the sidewalks I mentioned, these are just some image pictures from some other places. Somebody said you're showing some things from California. This is not California, but this is the whole idea of this inside-outside dining along the street, large doors and windows that could open up. I love this picture here. This, even if you get a shower of rain, you can be sheltered and sit outside and have inside-outside spaces. We'll plant generous trees along the sidewalk, and this is not unlike what we're planning here with 2 trees and a planter, some plantings, and then an area where you can walk along. These are image pictures for what we are wishing to do. And then the retail, I mentioned that we're talking to a number of grocery-style vendors, and so these are some of the images that you'll see on the inside of the store. One of the things we've heard constantly from the neighbors is that we need more grocery, and that's one of the things we're responding to as we're talking to a number of them. Of course, until we get approval and until we get consensus, it's very difficult to sign a lease. So this is part of the process as we're going along. So A closer up view, I mentioned that at mid-block, we're actually talking to the city about putting a signal there so that we can get our traffic in and out of Milwaukee without causing havoc. And so we will be talking to the city Department of Transportation, and we've got a preliminary nod from them that says that a signal at mid-block would be a good idea. It would also be something that's very safe for the cyclists, for the pedestrians, so that we would come here and then ramp up on an angle to 2 levels of parking. So there's parking behind this area here, extending all the way down to the corner at Sacramento. We have about 340 parking spaces hidden in the building here, and then you'll see that there is some on-grade parking on the other side of the L tracks, and under the L tracks, about 90 spaces on grade. In addition to the retail, we're planning on 267 residential units. These would be rental units of various sizes, some larger, some smaller. So they're not all going to be these tiny micro units you're seeing. There will be some larger units that we're planning in this facility here. We're looking to accommodate affordable housing on site. We're interested in providing the affordable housing rather than buying into the system that you do on many other projects. So we will be interested in pursuing that. We're talking to the alderman and working through that. So we wanted to mention that we're not running from that, but we'll meet the city's requirements and we'll prefer to have them on site. Here, we will provide parking for the residential units at 0.5 per unit. So we have 267 spaces, approximately half of 134 for the residences. But we will provide one bicycle stall for each apartment. So we'll have 267 bicycle storage areas and a special bike ramp that you'll be able to ride up and park, and then have an area where you can fix your bikes. And are we going to have a mechanic on site?
No mechanic on site, but there will be a tech bike room in the building that people can use on their own with various apparatus that will be available for the tenants in the building.
We have a bike shop.
This is the view from the other side on Linden, looking back.
What about
And sorry, we
competition
didn't.
against the people that are here already?
But everyone said, well, what will the building look from the other side? You're just showing us the Milwaukee side, and I think Scott said earlier, the building will be finished on all sides. And so whatever you see on the Milwaukee side, you'll see from the Linden side. Here we've just put your houses on Linden just in white to outline them. We're not suggesting we're changing anything there. But here's Linden along here, and I'll say some more about that street when we get to the site plan. Here's the site plan. If you, just to orient yourselves, here's Milwaukee along here. Here's Logan Square over here. The CTA station is right here. So here's the CTA as it goes down. Here's the park on the corner. Now we've just shown this. This is our drawing of the park. Don't come to me later and say, hey, the park looks nothing like what you showed. We have an access point here that we're going to make green. This will all be permeable pavers, and we'll have grass grow out of them, so our retailer at the end here will be able to front on the park. I mentioned the wide sidewalks down here all the way to Sacramento. All of this shows retail on the ground floor. A lobby of our apartment building will be here. The ramp going up to the parking will be here. And then this is our service area in the back for our loading and for our truck deliveries and pickup along here. The signal will go in the center here, and that will be synchronized with the signal at Sacramento and over here on the square. On the other side, along Linden, we will improve the parking lot on this side so that we can have employee parking behind these trees. This will be nice and bucolic with street trees and meet the city's parking ordinance. for landscaping over here. So this will be a lot for our employees over here on Linden. Linden also, we'll keep it one way going all the way out to Sacramento, but we will actually be interested in trying to make a part of it two ways so that we can simply get into the back of our site. We'll work with CDOT to make an island here that will prevent cars from coming down Linden, but that will just go all the way out, and this will stay one way all the way.
We've also sealed off access from there to the parking lot.
Right. This is, I hate showing aerials because the only one that sees this is that crow that flies. But this gives you an idea of how the buildings will be articulated along Milwaukee. They will be set back 10 feet or so from one another, and you can see the different heights and the different expressions and the different outdoor areas, and then as you come to the corner, the different functions. So this is the retail end of it with the health club, and then the retail on the ground floor and the residential above. And this shows where the signal will be at mid-block. Remember, 3 whole city blocks along the entire length of the development. And then quickly, just looking at the plans, this would be the ground floor plan here, and I think we went through that on that smaller diagram, but this is just a larger diagram showing the individual retailers. We've shown the grocery store here, over 40,000 square feet, and this has elevators, so you can come, park on the 2 levels above. Imagine it's snowing or it's raining. You can drive here, park above, take the elevator down, shop, go back and unload your 17 bags of groceries, and then be able to leave down the ramp and out again. So up and down the ramp here, the signal here, and then by having this 2-way here, we're able to get service into the back very nicely, and parking on grade here, and then under the L-tracks. As we go up the building, you can see parking. I mentioned parking on about 2/3 of the building on the 2nd floor, and then we start to get some residential, and then a little bit of retail at the end. We've got a 2-story retail store facing the park at the north end. And then the 2nd floor, the 3rd floor, I'm sorry, continuing here, parking. Remember, we have retail, 2 levels of parking, and then the residential shown in blue in these areas here. On the 4th floor, we'll have an outdoor amenity deck looking out towards the southwest. Actually, the L-tracks run by here, and so as you sit outside, we've got an amenity area here, pool, and outdoor areas, and then party rooms and amenity areas for the residential here. The purple at the end of the building, this shows the health club that will be located on 2 floors here, and then this shows the residential as it extends to the north. And this just gives you an idea of some of the outdoor spaces that we're looking at as vignettes, and we will have the pool area and some very nice areas like this on the indoor-outdoor spaces, and then some amenity spaces on the inside for the occupants of the building. And then simply as we go up the building, the different levels, and with the retail at the far end, and then the residential levels as we go up. I mentioned the residential. This will be first class. These are first class units. We have balconies on a number of the buildings, and these are illustrated here. These are some of the units we've done in other projects, and this is the kind of quality that we will be developing here on this site, with very, very open, generous views to the city and to the west. This is simply an elevation that shows the entire length of the building. I'm from New Zealand originally, so I brought you these New Zealand clouds, you know, the land from long white cloud. So this is you don't see clouds like that here in Chicago. But this is the whole length of the building, and you can see how differently articulated the building is, and it's expressed, we believe, very nicely, and then simply how the section of the building works all the way through. We made a little video, and for those of you that can see, I think this is very helpful in understanding the project. We don't play it to music, so you'll have to listen to me narrate a little bit. But Patrick. So here's that. Oh, that. What do I do, Patrick?
Are you ready?
Here's the two stories of the fitness center, the parking below, the retail, the residential above. This is where the signal will occur at mid-block. See the generous street trees we would put in?
Besides the street trees, we are going to do a landscape edge to the curb as well.
Yeah, that's an improvement we've not shown here yet. Patrick, could you just go back a second to the park? I'd just like to show that. If I did that, totally messed up. But you see here, oh my goodness. Sorry. Big Croatian thumbs.
He draws really well.
You can see here at the end of the building how this retailer at 2 levels will extend out to the park. The trees all the way along the retail on the ground floor. This is the entry, car entry in and out at mid-block.
Currently, there are 2 access points for the Megamall, and we would consolidate to a single access point in the center of the site.
Those trees are really doing well.
Almost done. And then we come around to Sacramento, and that's where we would go take our service in. And that's the end of our presentation. So I think as Alderman said, it's
Well, first, I want to thank you guys for giving that presentation. Stay up here because you'll do a lot of the answering. But first, let's see what time we got there. Andrew, are you giving
Sure.
instructions?
Sure.
And maybe go with Daniel from LSA.
Oh, fine.
To roll that through real quick. So, Daniel, come on up. And why don't you introduce yourself when you come up? One of the reasons I want to go with a couple of neighborhood organizations is because they obviously represent a large portion of Logan Square and a large number of people. We work with the neighborhood organizations, whether it's Roscoe Village, South Lakeview, Bucktown, Ridge Park, and we listen to not only individuals that will be here today, we have just as much weight as organizations that might submit concepts or suggestions to us. But we tend to let the neighborhood organizations get up there and talk about things from their perspective. Many times they are the organizations that deal with a lot of the zoning changes or a lot of the development that takes place in any one of the several neighborhoods. So I'm going to kick it off with LSNA first.
Hi everybody, can you hear me in the back? Okay, my name is Daniel Espada. I co-chair the Housing and Land Use Committee for the Logan Square Neighborhood Association. I also serve as Vice President of Operations for our Board of Directors. For those of you who don't know, Logan Square Neighborhood Association is a collaboration of over 50 different schools, churches, block clubs, gardens, nonprofits in the Logan Square neighborhood that are working together to make sure Logan Square is a neighborhood where people grow together rather than grow apart. And so when we listen to our constituents, in a sense, they voice a strong concern for keeping the neighborhood diverse, and for the families who go to our schools, really interested in making sure that they can stay close to the places where their kids go to school, where they go to worship, where they go to shop. And so I want to speak briefly about just 4 interests that we have related to this development. So number one, we really want to applaud you guys for coming out for an open public process. I really think it's laudable that you're doing the affordable units on site rather than paying into the ILUA fund. What we talk about when they're talking about affordable housing is for the affordable requirements ordinance of the city. It says for any development that's getting a city zoning change, 10% of the units have to be affordable. Now, because we see so many families being displaced from the community, because we see a real interest from those families in staying close, particularly to public transit, we would encourage the alderman and the developer to view that 10% as a floor rather than a ceiling. Affordable units, which goes a long way towards helping families stay in this community and keeping every area of Logan Square reasonably diverse. We also want to talk about the size of the units that are being proposed. Under the city's affordable requirements ordinance, the units that are affordable should mirror the proportion of units in the development. The concern here is that the majority of these units are small studios and one-bedroom apartments. And we know that that's a challenge to raise your family in. It's difficult to raise a family in a 400 square foot studio. So we would like to see half of the affordable units be larger family-sized units, be 2- and 3-bedroom units. I also want to talk briefly about the quote-unquote affordability of the units. So the city mandates, again, that these units be made affordable at what's called 60% of the area median income. For a family of 4, that is $45,600. The challenge, again, here is that if you're a Latino family in Logan Square, based on the most recent census, your median household income is only $34,000. So we're, in essence, creating unaffordable, affordable housing. That's not right. So, again, thank you. So again, we want to encourage the developer for half of their affordable units in the building, for them to be priced at 30 to 50% of area median income. Because again, this allows those families to the opportunity to afford to live in the units that are being created specifically for them. And the last concern I would want to voice is related to commercial spaces. So I'm glad to see mixed-use development coming into Logan Square. We've always been a pedestrian neighborhood with kind of commercial on the bottom, residential on top. And I want to encourage a particular concept for you all. So if we look around us here, the Megamall has always been a space where you could take a little space and turn it into your first business. It really encouraged an entrepreneurial spirit, no matter what your income level was in the neighborhood. And so we would love the developer to think about setting aside a percentage of the commercial spaces for low and middle income small business owners. And the spirit and the history of what this space was and what it's becoming. And so I know that these concerns, these ideas, don't come free. They come with a cost. And we really want to work with you and the aldermen to think about what are the creative solutions that help make these ideas turn into reality, so this is a development that we can all be proud of. Thank you so much.
I take those comments to heart, and everything that we try to do in balance. So the balance is, can you get a project financed? Can it go forward? What can you do to make it better and make it more affordable for people and make it more adaptable for the community? The one thing I do want to point out is that we're not displacing a single residential unit with this development. There are 0 residential units on this 900-foot stretch of Milwaukee Avenue. What we're adding in terms of affordable units is a plus plus. Secondly, as I said, the balance that we're looking for is a balance that takes into account our humanistic interests and what we can do to finance a project. If we can't get it financed, no one wins. You get 0 affordable units, you get 0 grocery, you have essentially an eyesore that is crumbling beneath our very eyes. The one thing I do want to announce is I think we're pretty close to what Daniel said in terms of incubator space or innovative space. We are going to be reserving some of the commercial space for neighborhood innovative companies. And Sonia and Angel, could you raise your hands? Where are you, Sonia? They're the jeweler there. She designs a lot of her jewelry. We hope that we're going to be announced that she's going to be our first incubator tenant, and we're going to do upwards of 8 to 10 incubator users within the Megamall or the Logan's Crossing space. Where are Sonia and Aguilar? Where are you? Thank you. So we are planning on doing that incubator space, and really that came out of our discussions with the organization. So we are listening. There are things that we can't do, there are things that we can do, and we're going to try to strike that balance throughout the process.
Thanks. I also want to point out, we got several emails. One of them I forgot to mention was We Are Logan Square, and I know that several people that signed on to that letter. So, that is you guys, right? And so emails that are sent in, we're going to read through all those and basically compare what we have. I want to thank you guys for sending that along as well. Now I'll have Andrew, I think, come up and talk about the perspective that Logan Square Preservation has on this project as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Andrew Schneider. I'm president of Logan Square Preservation. For those of you who don't know who LSP is, we've been active in the neighborhood for about 35 years. Many of you probably been on our house walk. Logan Square Preservation did that over 31 times in the neighborhood. And we've also been behind the advocacy for the creation of 2 of our landmark districts here in the neighborhood. So, we believe that preservation of a neighborhood is the beginning of preserving its buildings, is the beginning of preserving its identity. You might have also seen us, we do a lot of tree planting in the neighborhood. We did plant about 50 to 100 trees on Humboldt Boulevard over the last 12 months. So I've got a prepared statement to read. I'll do my best not to belabor it. Logan Square Preservation met twice with the development team behind this project. In the run-up to this meeting, we're pleased that they've incorporated some of our suggestions into the project as it stands. That being said, we still have several concerns about this development as currently proposed, and we're hoping that they'll continue to work with us, and I have every indication that they will. Those concerns include, we'd like to see the building decrease in both height and density. Scale is an important consideration with new development, particularly one of this size. And we're concerned about the ripple effect that's already being seen from a lot of large-scale developments further south along Milwaukee. Height and scale is important. Usage, I'm going to echo what Daniel Espada said, and I'm glad to hear about the incubator space. Usage is also something that should be a long-term community benefit with the development of this scale, and an incubator type component is definitely a priority for Logan Square preservation. We'd also like to see the curb cut on the northern end of this site eliminated. We think the northern curb cut is something that will have a negative impact on the potential redesign of Logan Square and with traffic in that area, and it will also separate the development from the orchard space and the green space of Logan Square itself and serve to create a bit of an island there. We'd like to see the northern of the facade of the building, thank you. This facade retreated in a way that presents a landmark caliber building to Logan Square. So, with all due respect to Antonovich Associates, they've done a great job. If you go outside, you'll see there's a building, brand new construction building out there. 4 of the units are sold, and 4 of them have grills on the front of them. We think that the perspective from Logan Square should be a more unified statement. We'd also like to see the developer continue to work to integrate traffic and design with the redesign of Logan Square. That being said, we are excited about the prospect for development on the site, glad of the changes that have already happened, and hope to see some more yet. Thank you.
We can go as long as we need to until they pass out. But I'm going to open up to Q&A. And one thing I would ask is that if you want to make a statement, that's fine. A question is fine. Try to pare it down as quickly as you can, because we're going to have a lot of people that want input. And I want them to be able to answer your questions as best they can. So the guy over there in the red shirt, just a second. You got to say your name and block.
Jonathan Stokely, I live at Richmond Palmer. I think most people feel the same, that looks like to me an eyesore in Logan Square. First question is, where are you gentlemen from and where do you currently live?
I don't live in Logan Square, although I live in Lakeview. And
This isn't Lakeview. We don't want it to live in Lakeview.
listen, I'm not here to shout at you, and I don't want you to shout at me.
Actually, yeah, let me make a point about that. Once they start answering, please be respectful. There's no reason to get mad at people. There's no reason to get excited. Remember, this is the first meeting. So we've got plenty of time to work on this. Make your statement, make your point, but then let them answer as they can. They can't change their answer based on anybody getting angry or upset about what their answer is, okay?
Joe lives in Evanston, has spent most of his life in the city, and spends at least 10 hours a day in the city. I've developed, as I said, in many, many neighborhoods. I can't live in all, but I can do my best everywhere I develop. And that's all I'm going to do. And if you want people to develop in Logan Square who only live in Logan Square, it's a limiting proposition, and you'll end up with a poor community as a result of it.
I'm Arturo. I live on Mozart. One of the reasons we like living in this neighborhood is because a lot of the independent businesses that are here, they're not chain stores, and that's also one of the reasons this is a desirable place to be developed for you all. So I would encourage you guys to stay away from the chain stores. I understand it's appropriate for the corner retail for big anger, but the whole 600 feet, maybe if we did not have a line of Chipotle's and Subways, that would be cool.
Yes, my name's Erin Watson. I live on the 2400 block of North Albany in the 32nd Ward, and I just want to make a brief statement on behalf of We Are Somos Logan Square. We agree that the city's requirements should be a floor, not a ceiling, for affordable housing. We would only support rezoning for
about putting a stoplight in the middle of the block because of the flow of traffic. It's already pretty bad, and I can't imagine that that's going to be a manageable place to put a stoplight. I understand the reasons for doing it, but I'm very concerned about that because we've got a lot of congestion.
So the question was about traffic concerns, and have we done a traffic study yet? Our traffic counts are in process. We are doing a traffic study. We'll share that with the Alderman's office, and I'm sure he'll share it with the community. As it relates to that, though, one of the things that I would like to say to people is, if you have to go further distances to get essential goods and services, or go to a health club, you are actually taxing the infrastructure in greater ways than if you have a centralized use that you can walk to, or take transportation to, or a bike to. So in essence, the fact that you're not having to travel further distances actually mitigates any traffic concerns. Having said that, let us put together the full traffic study, and we'll share that with the Alderman and the community.
Yeah, I'll come back in a second. Checkered shirt.
Daniel Mani, I live on 29 Third Block Drake. I was actually wondering what's the rationale behind the gym or the health facility, because, well, for two reasons. One, it takes out a sizable chunk of the development. Two, I can think of 4 health facilities that we have around here. One on Logan Boulevard, right around the Target, Kosciuszko Park. One south of us on Canty, and then the YMCA.
So the people who do the analyses for a health club like this, they're analyzing where people are coming from, how far they're willing to travel in order to go to the club. The truth of the matter is, most people who live east of the expressway or west of the expressway don't want to travel east or west to get essential goods and services. So that if you see something on Elston Avenue, most retailers, given the density in this marketplace, don't view that as a similar market. They view it as a distinct market.
Let me go all the way in the back.
No.
I appreciate the incubator being incorporated. I appreciate that potentially there's housing for low-income, moderate-income people where there was none. What I vehemently object to is the scale of this development. It is twice as tall as the surrounding buildings, virtually. It's so disproportionate to what we have, and that sense of scale really impacts what we feel about our community. Are we going to become a canyon of high rises, or are we going to maintain the character of our future?
We live in a city, and sometimes definitions are important. These are mid-rise buildings. They're not high-rise buildings. Having said that, I acknowledge the comment, and that I acknowledge that it's a concern. And as I said, this is all a Rubik's Cube. We want, on the one hand, we have pressure on affordable housing. On the other hand, we want to see lower density. And thirdly, people don't necessarily want us to apply for tax increment financing so that those dollars can continue to go to the entities that receive those dollars. And for us, it's all balancing that. We have to figure out what works. So if you sacrifice density, you can't finance the project. If you can't finance the project, you don't get the housing. And so these are the issues that we're dealing with, and we're trying to figure it all out.
See a lot of hands up, so we'll get to everybody. A couple of points on that. One of the issues with the 2 to 3 units that we've talked about with them in terms of affordable, we've been working with a couple of the accessibility organizations, disability organizations, and talking about their needs as well. One thing that happened in the city, I don't know if a lot of you saw, when they rebuilt the Damon Blue Line station, because of the Blue Line station there being a historic landmark, they were not able to put in an elevator. And they do have access here. One thing we've been talking with them about is trying to get more accessible units into the project because of the proximity to a better that's in the beginning stages, but we've been working with organizations to focus on that. I know that the reconstruction of the Damon stop was a real sore spot for a lot of people, but there were things that they could not do on that site. We've got some other ideas that we're working on there. So let me go back into the crowd. Upset.
Hi, my name is Colin Young. I live directly behind the Megamall on Fullerton, Sacramento and Fullerton. And so, naturally, one of the first concerns I had was you mentioned that you'd be making Linden a two-way street. Linden is even quieter than my block, and I do worry about people on that block. And I also was curious at what time deliveries would be taking place, would we be able to hear it, that kind of thing, from Linden. And then the second point I just wanted to make was, have you done a shadow study to corroborate the gentleman's comment about height?
Yeah, we have done a shadow study, actually. And we'll share, the Alderman, I don't know if he has that, but we'll share it with him. And we have shadow studies for the orchard and for the property as well. So one of the things, can we go back to the site plan and just, so we met with some of the neighbors on Linden. I don't know if anybody's here from our meeting that we had. And so one of the things that we discussed was that they did not want any access to that parking lot off of Linden. And we had to get into that lot, and the way to do that is to create a two-way access from here to here for about 105 feet. It would be two-way. Then you have a landscape island here that goes across half the street. So if a car is coming this way, there are giant do not enter signs and, like a stop sign. And then you have the median, the landscape median there that puts people behind the Logan's Crossing building. In addition to that, we will work with the Alderman, and we've told him this, and the neighbors on Linden, that we will control when deliveries can occur using the alley back there, and we can do that with our tenants for our leases. Lastly, there's a lot of noise there because of the L.
Actually, the shadow study works well because the shadows here work well because the building's on that 45-degree angle, and because we really are separated from our neighbors by the L on one side and Milwaukee on the other, and we'll certainly post that shadow study for you all to see. But it actually even surprised us. The impact is very, very minimal.
A couple other things I wanted to point out that hopefully you can see on here. So the orchard that a lot of you know about is going in this area here so far. In our last discussion with the city's Department of Planning, that has not moved forward yet. And I've had a meeting with, I think it's Dave Snyder, and said that I do support an orchard there. However, we are also looking at this property, which is wholly owned by the CTA. I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but this Banco Popular is actually owned by the CTA, this lot right here. And we've discussed the possibility of changing that out instead of underused parking, turning that into a possible green space, unrelated, I think, to what they're doing. And then this other lot that's over here off of Linden, doing the research on that, the neighbors probably know, but this is owned, I'm pretty sure, by Mr. Park, who used to own this building. So he still has this property here, which is also undeveloped. And then one other point before we go to the next question. They did kind of surprise us a little bit. They do not want or haven't accepted or asked for TIF dollars, tax increment financing, which is a little bit of a surprise, but you know, we're going to look at that. And it's a little bizarre because most developers walk in and the first thing they ask for is TIF dollars. So that doesn't mean that's going to change the outcome of what we try to get to as the final project here. Let me go to the back over there.
So, Phil, with Linden Place, I thought we keep talking about Linden Place. We represent 12 units. I see one of my neighbors over here. We've got about a $4.2 million investment. We're going to be, you know, we're obviously one of your closest neighbors. And we did reach out, and thanks for coming to sit down and meet with us. And you've already made some changes, so, you know, thanks for listening. Certainly, you know, one of our hills to die on is turning Linden Place into a two-way street at any portion of it. We also get free parking today. That's starting to be a concern, given the density. People are going to run over there for our free parking, right? So if you do your traffic studies in the morning and you look at 9 and 5, you look at Sacramento and Milwaukee, you'll see that intersection is absolutely clogged already. So I can't imagine you having a left turn lane onto Linden Place anyway. There's just a ton of congestion there. I'd be interested in the shadow studies. We have not seen those, but we're supportive of the development and welcome you guys moving forward.
Thank you. So go ahead.
If I could just clarify so that we're, at least we can disagree, but we'll disagree knowing the right facts. Here, the only area we're talking about two-way is between here and the L-Trails. The cars would be able to make a right turn here and a right turn in. And then coming out here and entering here. That's all we would be asking for.
So there's no left turn off of Sacramento?
A left turn. Those are the details that we can work out.
And here's part of
And I mean that sincerely.
Well, and here's part of the push me pull me of all this. You know, Andrew's group is trying to espouse that we eliminate the alley cut on Milwaukee Avenue, and so, you know, if we do that, it makes our lives difficult if we don't have an access point here that allows us to go down Linden this way. So these are kind of the balancing acts that we're going through, and we're trying to address everyone's concerns as best as we possibly can.
Yeah, hi, my name's Alex Vance. I'm reporting with Action Newspaper for filing application to come in the area.
And your meeting speak
Big
up.
reporter from
Hi!
Extra.
Yeah. Reporter from Extra. I have one question. Can you talk a little bit more about the incubation? Can you talk a little bit more about the incubation, how that would work out for the small businesses that we're talking about?
Yeah. So we think it's kind of a, you know, an ode to the Megamall concept, where you would see 10 stalls in a space with 10 different companies and incubation space. And we want those companies to not just be something that you could get anywhere. We want those companies to be unique to Logan Square, that people are producing something, or maybe it's the start of the next great company that happens in our space here. So what we're looking for is something extraordinary, not something ordinary, but we want to do an ode to the old Megamall in terms of how we set it up.
Johnny's.
My name is Mary Millett, and I'm Logan Boulevard. I have two questions. One, when you're talking about the traffic and the two-way streets, I don't live real close to there, but are you talking big 18-wheeler trucks and delivery trucks coming in and coming out
Of course, you got a grocery store. Yeah.
They have to put another second
a
light,
food
literally
store
30 or 50 feet south of that light. That's actually on Milwaukee and Sacramento, because that block is really allowed.
So from a,
Two stop on Sacramento, and then another stop on south of Milwaukee.
No.
So how are big trucks gonna come in, how's the traffic gonna flow?
Okay, good question. With the other grocery stores that we deal with, the larger stores, we, as a condition of our approval, agree upon a delivery schedule. And most large stores like this may get 2 or 3 large trucks a day. We would make sure that those deliveries are, say, very early in the morning, say between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. or, maybe 1 o'clock until 6 a.m. when there's no traffic on the street. And those trucks, we've done the turning radii, they would come down Milwaukee, they would be able to turn in and then back in here and then leave and come out onto Sacramento. But that would occur on a scheduled basis, at a scheduled time, and that would not be when there are all the cars on the street. Now, to answer your question, the biggest reason for having this two-way is that we'd like to get our employees to this parking lot here. So this is primarily for vehicles, for cars, and I think if the studies end up showing that this is right in and right out only, then we'll report that back. But I think the fact that we've not done the traffic study and worked out all those details, we're telling you that honestly, and we'll come back to you.
Also, you said that there were 340 or somewhere around the parking spots.
Within the building, there's 343. There's 343 within the building here, and another 90 on this parking lot and under the L tracks here.
And of the 343, is that where you said a percentage is for the people who are going to be renting the units, or are those additional parking spots for them?
Of the 343, approximately 130 for the residents of the building. Now, we think it's going to be less because this is really a transit-oriented development because you're so close to 2 CTA stations and great bus service on Milwaukee. So we think it's going to actually, demand will be less. But to be safe, right now we're figuring 130 of those 330. 200 will be for the retail and the shops on the first floor.
What makes you think there's not going to be cars?
And I own other property, and I've seen this, the developers have come in, and they've done things and building things and everything else, and it's a bigger impact than people anticipate that's going to happen. So I was wondering, do you ever do post-studies to see, you said you've been involved in lots of different
We're going to have more
do
cars,
studies
not less
afterwards?
cars.
Because I know where I live, they came in and they were able to put a restaurant, put an outdoor patio for dining. They never mentioned live music. This thing is very large, it affects a lot of people. Now you're having more and more people come in here, and you don't have any, what about your friends and relatives who want to come and park and visit you? So we have this isolated thing where supposedly people are very young, urban, take the public transportation, and you're going to have your visitors and friends come, and where are they going to park? Where are they going to park?
On my lawn.
Actually, we're providing much more parking than what the city code requires us to do. So we're erring on the positive side. And we've got retailers here. If there's a problem, we'll hear it from the retailers before we'll hear it from anybody. And it's our responsibility to obey the law here. And we're tied into this development. What we show here will become the zoning requirements for this site. And we have to abide by that. What we tell you, we have to abide by.
And we've done informal follow-ups on developments that we've done. And I know that people aren't going to accept this on face value, but in the majority of cases, it's much ado about nothing. People want progress without change. It can't happen as these changes occur. It benefits the community. I would tell this to the alderman. I would tell this to anybody here. There isn't a single municipality or ward that I've developed in that I wouldn't have you call up either the alderman or the mayor of that town and say, were these people good developers? Did they do what they said they were going to do? And have they made the community better than how they found it?
White shirt right there. And I'm going to pop back up here and then.
Larry Liggers, Logan Square, Concerned Citizens. Two concerns is the ongoing valid concern immediately. Once this building is demolished or start demolished, is your private road contractor here? Because every resident within the circular of this building and businesses will be affected by 18-wheeler size grass that are in this building. So that is a major concern because Alderman does not have the budget to handle the rodent problem. And if you go to resident, they talk more about rodent problems than about crime problems. So that is the #1 concern that we should have here, is how is the private contractor going to make this place before the demolition comes down.
It's an excellent point.
The second one is that when I spoke to Trader Joe's about this, the biggest concern was that the lack of being able to get 18-wheelers in here, in and out, to get deliveries here. So thank you very much, but please address the serious concern.
Quick answer to that. We just passed an ordinance that all developers have to do abatement on their properties. Before it used to just be by their word, but now they actually have to sign off on it and go through an affidavit process. That just passed a few months ago.
I'm Stacy Harris, Sacramento, Logan. One sentence comment and then question. My comment is, I'm really disappointed that in your design there are no architectural features that reflect the historic landmark designation of the boulevard that surrounds it. And industry, and now being a lessor of commercial space. 45,000 square feet of food space. Whole Food Express is coming into the city anywhere from 29,000 square feet to 54,000 square feet. Mariano's is all over the place. So what type of grocery classification do you see going into 40 or 45,000 square feet? Let's round it off to 42,000 square feet.
So, one, we make a policy to never talk about specific tenants.
I understand that.
I think it could run the gamut. There are, what I would say, national chains to regional, local. There are people who are very adaptable space-wise, and others who are very rigid. In fairness, the one player who couldn't work with the site was Mariano's.
I understand that. They're too new also to have.
And they're too big, and they weren't adaptable. And so
my question really was, what kind of grocery store classification do you see going in? So I understand that you cannot speak about potential tenants, but it really comes down to then what is your vision of the type of store that should go in there? And I guess, I'm not speaking for the Alderman, but I
okay,
guess.
so I would say I want somebody to offer a full service line of produce, organic products, fresh meat, box goods. I want a full service array.
So do you see that mixed in with hard goods, soft goods as well?
I don't know.
All right, so your vision is then a full service type of supermarket that the entire community can shop at. And you bring a very good point, which is if we have to go somewhere else to find good quality fresh products, organic or not, but still a good mix, we have more congestion to traffic by having to travel. So I would hope that your vision as a developer would be that you bring that type of quality in. Good, fresh product, organic and healthy, and a good price of non-organic, so that we don't get to travel.
Sean Taylor, Kimball and Alfield. Gentlemen, this is great. I'm really excited with the efforts you've done and the work. A couple areas I love in particular. The focus on parking I think is great. I encourage you to make that an emphasis. I think the ratio and being above the city limits is great. The incubation, fantastic idea. And I do like the mix of what you're doing with breaking the building up from kind of the street side, the
if I had to challenge you on one area for additional creativity to go off of your comment, the front building right there is like, it's the pinnacle of your design. It's like the architectural element right there. And anything you can do to make that match a little bit better, a little less glass and steel, a little bit more brick, a little bit more limestone. I know there's some price trade-offs there, but it would really tie it into the neighborhood, and I think it would be something that the neighborhood would embrace visually when we sit in our square meeting.
I feel like I have to respond to the historic questions. For the longest time, I built 22 buildings at DePaul University. And we tried to build many of those buildings that were duplicating some of the historic details in the community. We could never do it. So they came off as almost being a poor copy. So the effort here is to build a quality building using quality materials, because if I go up and down Kedzie, there's no way that we can duplicate that kind of architectural history on our buildings here. We just can't do it. But here, I think we will take some of the historic details from this building, save them, and look at ways that we could integrate them into the building, integrate them into the park. But we will also, I think we're hearing some things tonight. I think this elevation here, we've heard many times, several architects in this community. It's tough presenting to you. But I think here, we've tried to make an effort here to soften. That comment has been made in several of our other smaller community meetings with individual groups. So we'll make a commitment to coming back to you with something here that's a little softer and something that celebrates your journey from Logan Square.
So, Joe, you're hearing it. I apologize.
My comment is just about being historic. I think it's great you're coming in. The Megamall space needs something. But in all respect, you can go to Chicago Metal Supply and get some fabulous copper work done. Indiana limestone is still mined. It's still easy to cut and very clean. You can. You're right. You're not going to go and replicate some of these homes. But I think for you to make the statement that you can't replicate it is actually not true. You can't go take those structures, but you can certainly get a column or an arch out of Indiana limestone today. You can get copper platinum today. We all know that.
So we are going to address that issue, and we've heard Andrew's group loud and clear. We know we have work to do there. Having said that, the fact that this will be called Logan's Crossing is an ode to General Logan, who was commander of the Army of Tennessee during the Civil War, went on to become a United States Senator, was a failed candidate for Vice President's office, and as United States Senator, and it's important in this month of May that we acknowledge that General John Logan was the founder of the Memorial Day holiday, and it was his legislation that created Memorial Day. So one of the things that we haven't done yet that I want to do is I want to figure out how to honor the man on our property in ways that pay homage to his service and his commitment to the state of Illinois.
I'm going to go up front and then in the back, then I'm going to pop back over here, register, and then I'm going to get to everybody.
Hi, my name is Barnaby. I live on 2500 Drake Avenue. I applaud the efforts of this group and also want to see something happen here, but I think there's a long way to go I feel the building doesn't fit the character of Logan Square. It feels like it could be in any suburb. This is not Arlington, Virginia, or a suburb of some city, and this doesn't feel like an urban thing, and it doesn't feel like it fits in. It feels so different. And if you look at the houses across, the buildings across the avenue, they're so much lower, and the scale is so different. And if we could that for the scale of the neighborhood,
Yeah, plus
I think that would go a long way to helping this out.
Andrew, so much for the love fest between historic preservation.
I say it with love, thank you.
It looks like it landed from
No,
outside.
I don't. I mean, it's a mixed use urban project.
It looks like spatial.
I'm George. I actually don't live in Logan Square. I live in Hyde Park, but I've been here.
How do you hear you?
Oh, I've been here a couple times, probably as much as I was a kid. But so I was just thinking, I don't want to use the word gentrification because that's a loaded word, and it's kind of nebulous. But I mean, to be completely honest, can you tell me that people? Two things. I have two questions. That people won't be displaced from the community as a result of this building. I know you'll be like, oh, it's not exactly us. It's this, and that. But I mean, property taxes will rise. And my 1.5 question is like, will people be able to afford the products and services that are sold in this building? And then my third question is, this neighborhood seems to have a large and long-standing Hispanic character, and I really don't see that incorporated in that building. Now I know that Pilsen and like Humboldt Park are a bit more established, or at least for the luck of the draw, got their flags and their little, murals, but this just looks like, I'm from Elgin, and it looks like, originally, and it looks like some of those new buildings they go.
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm from St. Louis Avenue. I've been here about 20 years. I'm a relative newcomer to Logan Square. So I am so thrilled to see a grocery store coming into this area. I have said since the day I moved here, oh my gosh, this would be such a great location for a grocery store. So I'm not an architect. I'm trying to get my head around what is 45,000 square feet. I'm also wondering, so what is that commitment? I think I've heard some rumors that we're like, you're looking at Target Express, which is absolutely what we don't want and what we don't need here. Once you get that space, what is the commitment to make sure that it still is a grocery store, or if you're really struggling, how does that get managed so that we don't end up with the Target Express here at the end of the day? And then I'm also wondering, the parking spots, is that part of the deal with the grocery store, or do I need to drive home, park, and then come back to the grocery store with my wheeler? Which is okay, I'm just trying to understand if those parking spots will be part of the grocery store or that retail, or if that's really not going to be accessible.
Parking is for the retail, parking is for the residences, and parking is also for the community if they want to stay longer than a certain period of time and use other businesses in the area.
So it may be available, it may not.
No, it isn't.
Well, right, as long as, I mean, I just don't have any sense as to how fast it'll be filled up. If they're going, to a bar versus a grocery store to,
It's designed so that we want those people who are shopping or using our facilities to be spending no more than 2 hours shopping and using the facilities, so that those are our primary interests.
okay, and then what about, can you give me a conception of like, or what is a 45,000 square foot grocery store in the Chicago area? I mean, what is that? What grocery store would I go to?
You've seen Jewel's and Dominic's in that size. You've seen.
Is the Jewel right over there? Is that on Elston or on Clybourne? Is that 45,000 square feet? I'm trying to get a sense.
No. Yeah. A lot of the Whole Foods were in the 45,000 square foot.
Okay, and then what is the commitment? I mean, once you have that space, what is the commitment to get something in here, and what control does the community have over what you get in here?
You don't.
Honestly, you have control over the process. The tenancy, 20 years from now, I can't make any guarantees what it's going to be. We're going to sign long-term leases, but I don't know what happens.
Me two together? Okay. The gray jacket.
bring shoppers to this location. And I'm just not seeing that here, unfortunately. It feels, and I use this term real lightly, but a cookie cutter sort of cutout of a development with some very thoughtful amenities. So if you can add some detail, add some special elements that take advantage of what's already here and led to our success, that would go a long way.
Hi, I just want to thank you for this meeting. Thank you for having a space that can hold all of us. I just wanted to say I think we've all been going to a lot of community meetings about developments of Milwaukee in the past months. A lot of meetings, and I feel like what's exhausting me as a person who's going to these meetings is that the first meeting we show up and something's sort of built. And when we're talking about a Rubik's Cube and how maybe we don't understand the forces, or there's this math where not everybody can get what they want, maybe when development of this scale on the horizon of our neighborhood that we obviously all care about so much, maybe the process, while I appreciate all of your bringing in for all of us, especially all listening, leadership groups to talk about what should go in there, I just feel like there's a model for community input that's being missed here. The MPC did a really great job, I think, having community meetings over a month on Wednesday nights, and they have a lot of text-in options for the development that's happening over by the train stop. So I appreciate all the work that you guys put into this rendering, but I also feel like a lot of the tension about all of these elements might have been ameliorated if we had had more of a ground-up input collection. So that's my 2 cents about the whole process, although a lot of this went way better than a lot of the communities I went to, so I don't want to be all negative now, like, but 2 cents. And for cousins.
Hi, my name is Mark Keller. I live in the 2600 block of Mark Campbell. Some quick nuts and bolts questions. I'm sure you may have presented this to the groups that you met with, but you didn't tell the rest of us. What is the breakdown of the residential units in terms of studio, 1-bedroom, possibly 2-bedroom, and the rent scale that you project?
The rent scale is going to be projected, but you're not going to know until you go to market. And we're not going to go to market on this for another 1.5 to 2 years. So this is a long time in the future. If you have that crystal ball, please tell me about
Well,
it.
then you can answer the first part. What is the distribution of units?
We're approximately 10 to 12% studios, and then 1-bedrooms, approximately 25%. 1-bedrooms and dens, an additional 15%. The remainder being 2-bedrooms, and then we're looking right now to see if we can include some 2-bedrooms and dens and 3-bedrooms. But so the majority of them will be 1-bedrooms, 1-bedrooms and dens, and 2-bedrooms, with the studios, and then a few 3-bedrooms included also.
Okay. Second, Alderman Waguespack, you're a bit of an expert on our wonderful parking meter deal that we inherited from your daily. So
that's a different decade.
The proposal with the mid-Milwaukee block entrance egress will take 3 to 4, possibly 5 parking spaces that the owners of that parking meter deal need to be compensated for. Who's going to be responsible for that?
Well, they can be, or we can be, and because we built up a backlog or a reserve of parking meters, I can take those and put them into another area where we have essentially what they call excess parking spaces. So I can put them on Clybourne, I can go put them on Lincoln, and I have areas where people are asking for meters. So on a constant basis, there is change within that system. And so ones that we lose, we transfer them to other areas.
The other thing, Alderman, is we're trading 2 curb cuts for 1. So our net loss in terms of street parking may be 1 parking space.
Okay, I'm not the parking meter people, and we have a lot of lawyers that like to go over it. I'm just asking the question because that's a good question. That is a nuts and bolts fact.
I'll pay for that.
Hey,
Let me go.
more quick observations. Thank you, Alderman, for pointing out that the CTA-owned land, which is the much underutilized Banco Popular parking lot, and in fact, Banco Popular, the bank structure itself is a CTA lease corresponding to where the elevated used to end, the end of the blue line. For decades, many of us have been advocating for park space there, and in fact, there's advocacy for a grand scale proposal as a park campus, a vertical park on that space that catalyzed Mayor Daley in 2002 to commit to the Logan Square open space plan, which led to the open space study that we're all aware of. So park space there is something that we all would like to see and integrate this project in. And one last quick observation. Logan's apostrophe S crossing is a bit much on the tongue. Logan crossing, if you have to have it incorporate Logan. And drop 2 characters on your sign.
Hi, I'm Maria, and I live on Bernard Street, Western Square. And I have a question and just a comment. One question is about the sidewalk space, because you were kind of talking about that the sidewalks will be set back, and people can, the vendors or the retail space can utilize that for, tables out and things like that. But on the walkthrough, it looked like there really isn't much space above and beyond like a normal sidewalk. Is that something that?
It's just a bad move.
Okay, well, I just wanted to, say if that's kind of the concept of the retail, the kind of retail that you'll have. And then the second is just kind of a general comment, kind of fitting in with how people in Logan Square, how we would use a building like this. So, your thoughts have to be also on your bottom line, and you want to have retail that's going to be successful. And I think the aesthetic and what type of retail is in the building would be huge and really important. We have the farmers market. We are proud when a new bar or restaurant opens up that's unique and different, and people come to Logan Square, and we experience Logan Square because of those type of unique things. So I think the kind of suburban feel and how we experience the neighborhood is really important to the retail being successful. We're not going to sit outside if it's a Subway that we're sitting outside of. We want to sit outside of a unique type of space. And another place that kind of made me think of this project was when I was at the French Market downtown, which has some of our vendors from the farmers market that have stalls in there. It's kind of similar to the incubator concept, but it's food vendors and smaller restaurant spaces, smaller grocery spaces. The people who make the soap at the farmers market, they have a booth in there. I think that there are ways that you can make money and have something unique that's a destination to Logan Square, and it's something that the people in Logan Square are proud of and want to go to, and not just something that is,
Generic.
Yeah.
We agree. And by the way, my wife and I, and many of you will see me all throughout the summer at Logan Square Sunday Market. I'm there, virtually every other Sunday, and you can grab me and, give me your comments when you see me. I love Logan Square. Yes, I don't live here, but I really love this community. And I'm going to say an L word right now. Our place in Lakeview has a whole wall of penny pinch artwork on it, and we purchased that here in Logan Square. And we love the uniqueness of Logan Square. We're trying to get there and not go broke in the process.
Let me just see hands so I kind of know how many we. Okay. I'm going to go with the guy in the green shirt, kind of top over here, and then. Do we have a hand up here? I'll go right there.
My name is John. I live on Pittsy Boulevard. My question is actually for the Alderman. These gentlemen purchased a lot with an existing zoning of C2.2. They justified their purchase price based on the existing zoning. Why would you ever agree to change that zoning? Why would you agree to
I haven't agreed to change the zoning yet, but when
I
developers...
understand that. Why would you ever? Is the question.
Well, they might, there's a lot of reasons reasons you might want to change zoning. If somebody comes in and the site is configured in a way that doesn't allow them to do the types of things that people in the room, in this room in particular, want to see, there might be a bump up that they need to go to a different level. They might want to go from sometimes we go from C to B because we don't like C. One of the things that we've looked at in Logan Square is that you guys have a ton of C zoning. And C zoning, from my perspective, is it's the old use that allowed car lots, and it still does. So if somebody could come in here, raise this thing, and put in a car lot with C zoning, one of the things that we're looking at is trying to change this portion of Milwaukee and other streets throughout the ward into pedestrian zones or pedestrian lawn areas, which allows us to really configure and do zoning in a much better way than it is set up right now. So it's possible that you can get a much better end product by giving somebody either an upzone or a change to something else that creates a better situation for the neighborhood. So that's what we look at, and that's why we're having the meeting. One thing I would say is, I left a lot of the pieces back there at the back table, but developers come into our office all the time and they'll say, give me a zoning change because I want to build this project. And they won't have anything on the table. They'll go file downtown and start the process without going through the community. We usually put a stop to that pretty quickly once we find out. But getting a zoning change is pretty, well, they probably know it's pretty difficult in our ward. They've got to run through a lot of hoops, and a lot of developers, frankly, get pissed off because we have such a lengthy process. And sometimes they get what is a good product for them and what they want, but we try to make sure that the neighborhood really is the focus of the final product. So it might be that I would say that they came in, and one of the other comments said, well, how did you get to this? How did they do this first? Well, I don't like developers that come in and say, just give me that zoning change. And I can tell you it happens a lot. And they come in and they shoot for something really high, like 12, 15 stories. Well, of course that's never going to happen here, but there are ways to kind of modify what we're doing through different zoning changes. One thing I don't think has been mentioned is it is a planned development. And what planned development does is it sets all the parameters, everything that goes inside that planned development for the final product is what they have to stick to. So they can't come back years later and start changing things as they wish. They can't, start chopping up buildings. They can't reconfigure streets. That's all based on what we put into it, starting in this process called planned development or PD. But to get back to the original point of making this a pedestrian street, I think it's important, and I don't know why Logan Square has so much C zoning. I think Logan Square folks from the Preservation Group have said a few things about it, but that goes back to zoning prior to 2005. That's commercial. We really need to start looking at and changing. That brings up a lot of legal issues, very serious ones about the value of properties and what the owners see as the value of the property and how we might be looking at downzoning something, which is difficult to do, and it brings up lawsuits, but we've done it in the past. But it's to protect the neighborhood from, I can tell you, in the Bucktown area and east of there, you have the river and the industrial area. There's a lot of C zoning and properties there where you've got guys just going in and putting in whatever they want because they've got C zoning. And that's why we look at trying to change things. But it has to come in the form of PD, which means that everything that goes into it is what we agree on. Okay? I had to hear it first, and then I'll swing back to the woman in gray.
Hi there.
I'm sorry, and then I'll go.
I'm Ward Miller. I'm with Preservation Chicago. I know most of you. I've lived in Logan Square for 20 years. We've been looking at the site since 2000, actually. Developed a little plan called the Millennium Plan for Logan Square, which included historic districts, including the boulevards, which are really historic. But one of the city's most important public squares is adjacent to this parcel. And I think we want to encourage you to continue to look at how this building relates to the monument and this historic plaza.
as you know, the monument was designed by Henry Bacon, who a few years later went on to design the Lincoln Memorial. This is a really critically important public space. It's one of the great outdoor rooms we have on the Boulevard system. And we want to encourage you to continue looking at ways of maybe treating that facade and that streetscape that faces the square very sensitively. I think it really takes a lot of study, and maybe the 20th round or the 30th round is when it comes about. But it's really important to have that down. And the other thing is we're a very walkable neighborhood, a very historic neighborhood. A lot of us are very proud of our landmark districts, of the walkability factor. And I see this growing to 7 and 8 stories, and with the exception of a few buildings that are from the 20s, we don't really have a lot of this type of development, those types of heights in the area. And I'm just wondering if the parking, the 2 floors of parking were submerged, and I know that's more of a cost, but if that was lowered, this whole project would lower down a little bit. And it's just a little too tall for Logan Square. We've seen time and time again a precedent, of the new highest building is the newest standard, and it keeps sort of inching its way up. So just some general concerns there we'd like you to be aware of. And then there are some components of this building, specifically the terracotta facade of what was originally an automobile row. It's pretty substantial, and historic photographs actually reflected quite a nice facade there when it was filled with, it was glazed with glass. And we'd really like to see you incorporate elements of these existing buildings. I know there's been some discussion of that. And anything you can do to honor the square, honor some of the properties that were here before. There used to be several theaters on this site, believe it or not, before the subway incursion came through. So we just want you to think about all those things going forward.
Thank you.
My name is Jane O'Grodnick, and I live on 2700 Whipple. I just have a comment like this one about the balconies. I thought there was a trend to do away with these kind of balconies and use this space as area in the buildings. Because I don't know, in a city that has such cold winters, how much those balconies are used except for storing bicycles and other things. And if that's going to be on the main drag there on Milwaukee Avenue, maybe there's an alternative to balconies. Thank you.
By the way, at 8:30, if anyone wants to sing the national anthem, the clocks will be beginning at 8:30.
It's not a way to get out of here. Yes, in the gray house.
Hi, I'm Marta. I live on the 2800 block of Albany. I want to thank you so much for listening to our input, and I'm wondering if you can speak really quickly to, why are you listening? Why is it important to you to have community input? Why did you refuse TIP dollars? And I'm also curious for you, Alderman, what sort of accountability structure do you have in place to make sure that these fine gentlemen will actually use our input?
So philosophically, I've developed in Jackson Park a substantial project without TIF dollars, in Jeffrey Manor, in Beverly without TIF dollars, and I've also used TIF dollars in locations. My preference is to not use TIF dollars because, quite frankly, the city needs the eggs, and every dollar we take away from one taxing body, it may make a site easier to develop, but you can't avail yourself of that vehicle lightly. So our preference is to always do a project without TIF dollars. For instance, if we were putting the parking underneath street level, the cost would be astronomical. There are certain elements that would just drive costs so far north that you would need $20 to $25 million of TIF in order to make the project feasible. That's not our goal. Our goal is to do a development that does not utilize city funds that could go to other places. Why do we seek input? Well, the easy and kind of self-centered reason is, well, it's the right thing to do. But the truth of the matter is, this is your community, and we're developing here, and we have to respect the residents of this community, and we expect that if we treat them with respect, that we will get that in return. So that's our process on every development deal that we do. There is no such thing as a development without a process. And typically, and this process has been a year in the making. It is better now than when we started, and it will be better still when we finish.
On my side of things, so as I mentioned before, they have to go through a zoning checklist, a development checklist, which most aldermen don't have. So all that information is basically, they have to put it on paper before we even have a meeting. And if they don't, we just sit on it and we say, fine, we're not gonna move forward until you provide all that. They did that fairly early on. Mr. Antonovich, I've worked with him on projects before in the Lincoln Park area, uptown, I think. And he knows he's got to jump through a lot of hoops too. But hopefully they've been okay. And I think part of it is, people have watched how we try to go through the process over the last 8 years that I've been in office, and I think it's worked out pretty well. The guidelines that I put together were put together by neighborhood organizations. So my first few weeks in office, we spent time, we met with all the neighborhood organizations that I did when I took over in this area with Logan Square. We sat down with the groups and said, what is it that are your general policies and concepts that you like to see when we do development? And we incorporate those into the policies that we push forward on the developers. So if, as we move forward, we don't feel like we're getting to the point that people have given that input on, then we push it back and push it back. And that, frankly, that does cost them a lot of money. I don't like to see that loss of money, but a lot of developers work very well, as these guys have, to show up to meetings, meet with the neighborhood organizations, meet with the neighbors, and do as we've kind of instructed them to do. Yeah, that over here in the front there.
My name's Steve. I live on Bernard Street too. Thanks you guys for coming in. I know this is a tough forum for all this. Right now this is a vacant lot. I see this as a vacant lot, and your development's going to have a huge impact on the area in so many ways. And I challenge you guys, you especially, to look at this as an opportunity in the neighborhood. I mean, it's an opportunity for you fellas to make some money, I know, but to give back to us, to make this something very unique, so that people, when they take the train, they stop here before we're going downtown and say, you got to see this building. This is an opportunity of a lifetime,
We agree.
My name is Sean. I have a background in architecture and urban planning. I have degrees in both. I don't live here, but my family roots go back to the northwest side a century. I had to grow up in the suburbs. I didn't have a choice. And let me tell you, the land of ample open green space, really overabundance of it, ample parking, it's overrated. And some of you who may want that, there is 8,000 square miles of suburbia for you. I live in the city for a reason. I came back to the city for a reason. Dense urban environments, walkable, good architecture. And you move to the Loop, but that's what Chicago is. Chicago is a beautiful city of architecture all over. And you can go out to the boulevards and you see that. Now, the thing is, Logan Square had 114,000 people in it in 1930. We're at about 74,000 now and change. And as Mr. Miller said, President of Chicago, you guys do amazing work, by the way, you really do. But as he said, there are theaters here on Milwaukee Avenue. You go a little bit further north of the square, you have the Harding Theater, which was torn down in the 1960s because someone thought that was a brilliant idea for that really disgusting looking grocery store that's there now. But the city is traditionally a dense place. This neighborhood has traditionally been a dense place. This stretch of Milwaukee Avenue was a center point. just a restoration of what has always been there. And with the transit, we should be going dense. This is what other cities do. You know, in Toronto, this would be a 40-story building on that site. And I'm not suggesting that's what we build here, but this is what other cities do.
Oh, we're not doing any 40-story.
I live directly across the street at 2500 North Milwaukee. I do want to thank you for the investment you're making in the community. As a person who doesn't own a car in the city, I'm excited to see the development of a grocery store. That being said, I'm interested to see the shadow study. The neighbors across the street, I would assume, would lose all of our natural light that we currently have, and we would lose our west-facing views. I live in the city, as you said, because I like living in the city. I'm from rural Kansas. I'm used to open spaces, but I like the city. But I'm really concerned about the size of this building and it being really out of character for the rest of this neighborhood. I'm also very concerned about the entryway and what the light pollution would do across the street, how that would affect neighbors, the businesses. I don't know if you're out at 2 a.m., but you may have heard of the Owl. It's open until 4. The pedestrian traffic that often congregates out there, and how that would work with the traffic coming in and out of your property, and very concerned about pedestrians there with that traffic.
Just out of curiosity, what floor do you live?
I'm on the 3rd floor.
So you're about 30 feet up.
Yeah, when we get information like the light study, the shadow study, we put that on our website as the project is right now, so it's publicly available. Lingo, did you have a question? Yeah. Then I'll come back over here.
My name is Chris Holden. I live at the corner of Kedzie and Palmer in a 6-flat condo. So we have 6 units and there's 20 bikes in the basement. And I would, if this is going to be transit oriented, I would recommend that you go even further and have at least 2 bike spots per unit. If there are 3-bedroom units and there's families in there, they're also going to have lots of little bikeletts.
That's what you use your balconies for.
Sorry? Well, you know, if there's a good bike room, I love the idea about a tech room where people can do, you know, work on the bikes and hopefully, you know, racks and places where they can hang their bikes and do all sorts of stuff. If it's turned more into some type of bicycle center type, you know, centered, I should say. I don't know if they're centering on pregnancy, centering on this, bicycle centered place, and a nice, you know, on and off ramp through the back of the building where people can, you know, move their bikes in and out of the building very easily and carefully and nicely looking. I think that would be great. I have no doubt that, you know, it could be filled up.
We'll address more bike spaces, and a number of people, quite frankly, are going to keep their bikes in their apartments. They do in the city. But we will address more spaces.
I mean, they do. I do have, you know, some neighbors who they keep their best bikes in their unit. You know, the one that's a couple $1,000. The $100 one is locked up somewhere.
We'll address that.
But, you know, if the units, if they have, you know, bike hangers in the foyer, that would be cool. Some people use their bikes as furniture, you know, some are really nice to look at. You talk about the orchard that's not part of your property. It'd be nice to see some other green space. I mean, this is just a massive, ugly asphalt area right now, but incorporating your own green space would be nice, whether it's a green roof. And also, there's no, I didn't hear anything about any energy efficiency or green initiative or something. There's lots of opportunities for making this something wonderful that we could accept for a non-stop facade that's going to block out, you know, people's life.
Sorry, I didn't get to that, but we will have 50% of our roof will be green. We will have.
From a planning standpoint, one of the things that we want to talk to the Alderman about is, in lieu of the traditional Chicago green roof, we'd like herb gardens on the roof, so that people who live in the apartment building can grow their own herb gardens or, you know, plantings on the roof. Many of the times we see in the city these green roofs that are inactive. People don't use them. They're just a pile of mud and poorly maintained landscaping on roofs. We want it to be an active area, and it's something that we plan on working with the Alderman.
And we will have very energy efficient buildings with great insulation, low flow fixtures and all the plumbing fixtures. We look at ways of gathering the rainwater and using it for our sprinkler systems. And also, right now, the runoff here is 100%. We will actually be storing and releasing the rainwater on a calculated basis.
I've got 3
you have to engage in to balance the different weights. Low-income housing, larger units, more parking, less parking, the kind of thing that was mentioned earlier when you said, well, it's a balance, we've got to be able to get our financing. Some of us understand that better than others, none of us understand it fully because this is a large project. Again, I don't know how candid you can be and I don't know how much time it would take to do that, but if you could do something and give it to the alderman so that he can put it up on his website as a response to some of the points made in this meeting, that would be a really educational piece for the community. I would certainly like to see that.
So here's my issue with that. And because I've gone through this.
Tell me.
Yeah. No matter how little money you're making on a deal, somebody is going to say you're making too much.
Oh, I wasn't looking at it from that point of view, but of course you're right.
So you know, it's like anything that you present, anything you do. If everyone in a community had a veto vote, you never get anything done. So somebody is going to say something about it, and it stirs up a hornet's nest. Having said that, here's the other unknown, and that is we're here, and we're trying to predict what market forces are going to affect us 2 years from now, where interest rates are going to be. So you have some wiggle room in there just in case interest rates bump 100 basis points in the process, or God forbid, 200 basis points. But all these things you take into account, and it's the reason why people go broke, because they don't give themselves enough room, and market forces change like they changed in 07 and 08, and literally 2/3 of the developers who were in the marketplace back then are no longer in the marketplace today.
So in other words, you're not comfortable laying out something like that because it's so subject to so many different kinds of things.
I'm going to give you my card if you want to come to my office, and I'll sit down with you and I'll go over it.
Hi, my name is Penny Anderson. I live out in Logan Square. I've been here 50 years. And I've been here 50 years, believe it or not. But I think this is way too dense, and it's not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. They bought this knowing full well that they could put in 100 units, and now they're asking for 300 units, 350. You have other developments. What's the rentals in the other developments that you've done? What's a studio apartment? What's a studio apartment in one of the other developments that you've done?
Well, first of
You've
all,
done one in Roosevelt. What's that rent?
well, Joe has, but I mean, rents in the core markets are much higher.
I asked you, what's a studio in the one you did on Roosevelt?
One's on Roosevelt?
Yeah. You
They're
must know
about
the rental.
525 to 550 square feet for a studio.
For a studio. And what's the one bedroom? Is that in all your developments or just the one on Roosevelt?
No, it varies a little bit, but I'll give you a range. The one bedroom, say 675 to 725. The one bedrooms in Den, as big as 800. The two bedrooms about.
That's a square footage, not the price that you're renting it, right?
These are square footages.
I need the price. What's a one bedroom or a studio in one of your developments?
It varies all over the city.
Well, just give me a ball.
It'll vary from anywhere from say $225 up to
$225?
No, $2.25 a square foot per month.
25 a square foot.
Per month.
So for 1,000 square foot, that's about $2,300, correct?
No.
2,400.
2,200.
We'll round it up. I just want people to understand that these apartments are not
No, for 1,000 square feet, which would be a two-bedroom apartment. And then
So just so you know that that's what the rent's going to be. You're not doing this. I think it's too big. You bought it knowing full well you could put 100 units here, do the 100 units, not 7 stories with all this other stuff.
Listen. just have a retail building there.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
You know what? For every person that wants that, there are 3 that don't. So we could sit here, we could sit here,
Where are they?
we could sit here and argue that back and forth, but the truth of the matter is, there isn't a consensus on whether or not you should have a mixed-use project or a commercial only.
Over there, and then I'll come back.
Hi, my name is Steve Isaacson. I've lived on the 2000 block of Belden for the last 10 years. And first I want to say thanks to the Alderman and the developers for coming here and sticking around so late, listening to everybody. I think it's fantastic you guys have embraced bicycling. I have a fresh bruise from my bicycle commute this morning. What have you guys done? Do you have a plan to preserve and maintain the bike lane on Milwaukee, especially during construction?
So we're staging construction off of the alley and not off of Milwaukee Avenue, so the bike lane should not be impaired during construction.
All right, great, thanks.
Great. Lisa.
My name is Lisa, I've been in the neighborhood over 20 years, which means that I remember when this space was a lumberyard. I was really hoping that you'd bring back the lumberyard, because I think that we need one in the neighborhood, but that's not really where we're going to go with this. Actually, I'm very happy to see that you're using permeable pavers. Is the rest of your outdoor parking area going to be permeable as well? I'm very, very happy to hear about the rainwater that is coming off of your building. Thank you for doing that, because that does affect everybody's sewers all around us. One of my concerns is there's a large building that, I'm a few blocks away from here, a large building that went up, which I'm actually quite happy is there. It's so much better than the currency exchange and the drugs that used to take place on that land many years ago. But what we are experiencing with the large building that I have no idea if there's a bomb that's going to go off or not, I don't know what they're doing. But what we're experiencing with the tall building that is now there is the sound from the train bounces on that tall building and really has made it quite miserable on the other side of the tracks. And I've been there 17 years. So when you designed this, can you please be mindful of the neighbors on the other side of the tracks that are going to have the sound from that train hit that wall and come back to them louder than it ever has before? Look at different materials, be it foliage, be it sound items that you put up on those walls, because it does make a big difference.
It's an excellent comment, and I'm sure we're going to address it.
We had a similar challenge up at DePaul's campus where we were building on one side, there were neighbors on the other. And we actually looked at some masonry units that were acoustic masonry units, even brick. I mean, they're just little things like that. Even if you can reduce it and cut it down a little bit, you try your best. And regarding the permeable pavers in the parking lot, we will look at that. Some people find them uncomfortable, especially people that wear and have small heels. But we'll come back to you on that. We'll take note of that. Here in the back.
Hi, my name's Elise. I live and grew up on the 2500 block of Richmond. The gentleman over here kind of touched on my question about the construction, and if theoretically the building overlooks something like this, how long do you anticipate it would take to build? What's the noise pollution going to be like for people in the immediate surrounding areas? And then do you anticipate any traffic issues from construction?
If we're Kevin, do you want to handle it?
No, you can talk.
So if we're successful and come to a design solution, if that's possible, Alderman, with this entire group. But let's just say our process goes on and our approval process goes for 4 to 6 months. We can complete our drawings and we start construction in the spring. We would anticipate being done with the whole project in 18 months after that. So we're talking about 2 years to 2 years and 3 months from now totally. And that would be the length of time. As far as noise and all during construction. We would adhere to the city's work times and hours, so that essentially that would relate to the work hours of businesses in the community. And as far as the construction traffic and all, we would work with you, the community. We would set up an ombudsman so that if you have a complaint, you can come to Kevin. But we would actually meet with you and have a community meeting before we start construction, and we would lay out all of the truck routes and all of the conditions of the construction with you and the alderman prior to starting work.
There's good developers and bad ones. The bad ones are the ones that we have to go chase down and fix a lot of those issues. But as was mentioned, back in prior to 2007 and 8, there was a lot of developers who fly by night. They were just absolutely awful, and it was total chaos out there. The building department, which is now scaled back even more, has more of an issue following up with a lot of the complaints. That's on the practical side of things during construction. But Joe knows we've worked with them before in the heart of Paul, with the theater and some of the other buildings there, and they mitigated as much as they could on the street side of things with when trucks were delivering supplies, materials, concrete, all that kind of stuff. They mitigated bike lanes, and they had to mitigate a lot of issues around the Paul campus itself, where all the students had thousands of them going back and forth. So they did a pretty good job, and I would impress them to do the same thing. Get Pop back there, and then I'll swing. Yes, sir.
My name is Jamie Zubart, and I've lived in Logan Square all of my life, born and raised here, and I've chosen to stay here. I know, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Scott.
Scott. When we were talking about commercial space, and I said I'd be totally okay having a grocery store. No, nothing above it, just an entire grocery store. And you said for every one person, there's going to be so many people that are going to be against it. Well, I'm personally volunteering to go door to door in the Logan Square neighborhood. On every single door to take a poll on what the community needs. And I guarantee you, sir, you are wrong.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. I live at Diversity and Kimball. I've lived there for 2 years. I've been in Logan Square in South Logan before that for another 7 years before that. I own property in the area, so I'm invested in the area. I actually appreciate that there's housing, and I mean that's an urban development. It's big, and it's probably too big for what we have going on here. But I want to kind of address the aesthetics of it. We're thinking about ways to integrate in the neighborhood. I don't know if you've reached out to any of the local artists yet, or anyone that does murals, because it seems that we're losing some of the mural space along the L. That's a great way, to soften the feel, because right now it honestly feels really like antiseptic. It feels like almost a hospital, and that's not necessarily, I guess, why I moved to Logan that time ago. So,
We have been working with Billy a little bit at the gallery. We're exploring ways to kind of dress it up a little bit. There is a wall along the L tracks that currently has murals. It's a CTA wall. We're not asking for anyone to change that. That will stay a mural wall as far as we're concerned. And we are constantly exploring ways to think out of the box, because we like to think that we're creative developers who, one, care about the community, and two, want to express what we're developing in ways that mirror community standards.
How many folks would like to ask questions that haven't asked them yet? Anybody over? Any last comments? I know some people wanted to. Yeah, right back.
My question was just the next time we might be having the chance to be in the same room as you guys and continue the conversation.
Sure. Typically what we do is we'll take a lot of the input, frame it for them. Obviously they're taking notes, hearing what you have to say, but we make sure that we compile it as well and give it to them. Try to get some time for them to give some feedback to us, and then we would be back in the typically we'll do at that point is, I mean, it's going to be gauged a little bit on what kind of response we get from the community. We do allow people to still email, call, but we find after meetings like this is that, you know, somebody goes home and they think of something else they want to say. You know, so we're going to leave that open for a little while to make sure we go in where we can. So we're not in a rush to, like, you know, finish this thing and get it going. I like to do it in moderation because I think that this allows everybody to actually have the real input they need.
Although the building is a fire trap, it is a danger to the community. It is a barrel roof. It's the same structure as at the fireman park where the fireman got killed at Kimball in Milwaukee. This is the same structure. And as long as this building stays up, there's a chance of it burning again. And you may end up getting a fireman killed here. So I want to make sure the developer realizes the structure of this roof is a danger and the building needs to come down as soon as possible. We agree.
So if you want to stick, they can stick around for a few minutes if they want, unless you want to run away. But the sign-up sheets are back there. We will also send out emails for the next meetings that we have, and I think as we get information in from the development team, we will put stuff on our website, and we'll just send out a notice that says, hey, we posted something, a new document to the website, so that you can go and take a look yourself, and then we'll take feedback from that as well. You're always welcome. Again, it's info@ward32, or just check on ward32.org and find it, what you need there.
There is one personal fact about me that you may find interesting. In this community, my son is a senior legislative aide to Senator Bernie Sanders.